Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Benjamin Cure Show on a Monday, July 21st, 2025. We've got some great topics to get to across many different sports, very different stories for sure. The WNBA with Caitlin Clark and what's playing out with Kelsey Plum and what she said regarding the t-shirts that said, "Pay us what you owe us," as well as some NFL talk because I want to get to a topic about Joe Burrow after I watched Quarterback Season 2. It was an amazing documentary, amazing job following these guys behind the scenes once more. But the Joe Burrow topic to me, I feel like, is one that we are not talking about enough, and certainly the Bengals and what moves they're going to make this upcoming year, or what moves I believe they should make, as well as John Jones in this White House card and what Dana White said in response to John Jones wanting to be included, and then John Jones' response to his quote-unquote disappointment in what Dana White had to say, although he understood seemingly. A lot to get to in today's show. We're going to pack it in here. We're going to be as efficient as possible. And let's start with the WNBA. So the WNBA was celebrating their All-Star Weekend. You may have seen a lot of headlines about Sabrina Ionescu. She had an amazing performance in the three-point shooting contest, as well as the, not memes, but the pictures and videos that you saw everywhere, the screenshots really, of the t-shirts that a lot of the stars were wearing in the league, which was "Pay us what you owe us." Essentially, they have opted out of their CBA. There was a clause that allowed them to do that, and right now they're looking to get paid more with the rise of their sport and the undeniable popularity that Caitlin Clark has brought them. But in a post-game press conference, or a post-event press conference where Kelsey Plum was sitting next to Sabrina Ionescu, she was asked about the t-shirts, and totally unprompted, Kelsey Plum gets and she essentially throws Caitlin Clark under the bus and says, "By the way, not the tattletale, but none of the members of Team Clark were present." And Sabrina Ionescu takes a few moments to recognize what her counterpart is saying, but when she does, she's like, has this look of a little bit of shock, and she laughs and kind of rolls her eyes, and she says, "Geez, like, did you really have to say that?" Everybody believes the same thing when you watch the WNBA. It is an innate thing to their league where you throw each other under the bus. There was a statistic that came out a couple of years ago regarding just how big of a pie Stephen Curry and LeBron James make up for in terms of regular season ratings in the NBA. It was something astounding, like 37% of either ratings or viewership or tickets sold, something that was a major statistic that was attributed to them. You know what didn't happen? Guys like Mikal Bridges, or just players across the league who are solid starters in the league, and I'm not taking anything away from Mikal Bridges. He's just one of those guys that came to mind. I'm thinking of role players and whatnot. They didn't come out and say, "Man, we think we're at the top, and honestly, it has nothing to do with LeBron James." Like, they're not throwing Steph Curry and LeBron James under the bus. I truly cannot even come up with a comparison because you don't see that. You don't see in these major leagues that are making billions of dollars, which is something I'll get into in a second here, because that's the second element of this, which is, are they underpaid and whatnot, which we'll address when we get to it. But you don't see these guys going after their own. You never saw Peyton Manning, or you never saw Michael Thomas talking about a guy like Peyton Manning. And in the NFL, it's a different culture, even less so. You're not going to go after the guys or the gals, in the case of the WNBA, who you are putting your blood, sweat, and tears into building this league up without any equity in it, really beyond your own percentage of the revenue share. It feels like the WNBA does that at every turn, just because they're always looking to take a nab at Caitlin Clark or try and diminish her impact on the league. The league has grown significantly with Caitlin Clark. We're talking about tripling in size based on so many reports out there. And I was reading a Yahoo tweet this morning, and I seemingly can't find. Okay, I do have it in front of me, so let me read it. Caitlin Clark is estimated to be responsible for 26.5% of the WNBA's economic activity during her rookie season. This figure, calculated by an economics expert at Yahoo Sports, is based on her impact on various revenue streams, including ticket sales, merchandise, and television deals. The Indiana Fever, the team Clark plays for, saw a significant valuation increase of 273% from 2024 to 2025. So we already know, based on reporting out there, that Caitlin Clark was responsible for 26.5% of the league's economic activity in her rookie season, not including this year where she has even more notoriety, and it feels like her star has grown even more. And we're not taking into account the 273% increase of the franchise that she plays for in 1 year, in a period from 2024 to 2025. Essentially, Kelsey Plum and so many of her other counterparts and teammates of hers across the WNBA want to throw Caitlin Clark under the bus. In a time when you're trying to show unity towards the league, who is the big bad wolf in the situation because you're not getting paid enough, and every league and players association is never going to get along, and they are necessary evils or counterparts in making sure that leagues operate effectively and that everybody's getting paid their fair share for the most part. I have never seen someone who is clearly such a beacon for growth and success be attacked so consistently by the people who benefit from that beacon of success that was literally non-existent 2 years ago. I have never seen more people go after a figure like Caitlin Clark in any other sport when they are the ones that are benefiting from this. Kelsey Plum has once again, and she's had other instances in the offseason that I'm not going to recount, but we've talked about on the show, where clearly she has a disdain and this almost sarcastic disposition towards Caitlin Clark. For some reason, she simply is not willing to acknowledge the importance of Caitlin in this entire thing. She is the reason why her league has grown. She is the reason why it has exploded. I'm not saying she's the entire reason, but she is most definitely 90% of it, or at least a quarter of it, which is 10 times more than Kelsey Plum's impact on the WNBA. And I think that can be said with certainty when you look at ticket sales and jersey sales and everything else and the way that the league has exploded. So the second element of that topic is the WNBA underpaid? And some people will argue they're overpaid. I'm not going to take it that far. There is an argument to be made here that on a percentage basis, when leagues like the NBA and the NFL are getting 50% of the revenue share, the WNBA is only getting 9%. So I do understand where WNBA players are coming from, where they're saying, look, we understand that we're hemorrhaging money, or we understand that we're losing money. And you know what? Maybe I'm giving them too much credit because a lot of them don't even seem to be willing to acknowledge that. They're not self-aware enough. But for the ones who are, I do understand the perspective of we're getting paid 9% of the revenue share. We'd like a little more. I think there needs to be a happy medium, though, with that being said, of should they get an increased percentage of the revenue share? For sure. But you also don't want it to be where you're in a situation, think of this like a business person, where your league or your business or your brand or whatever is finally turning a corner here. And just when you're starting to become a little bit more fiscally independent from the NBA, because it is a NBA subsidized league, you increase salary so much, or you increase expenses so much that you're still hemorrhaging even though you're having historic growth. I don't think you want to be in that position either as a league, but I certainly do believe that the WNBA could certainly, at least the Players Association, find a way to make more money from the revenue sharing point of view on things. Do I think that these ladies are going to be making $40 million a year anytime soon? I don't think so. I don't think it's warranted. You look at the revenue and whatnot, the league itself is only getting $200 million a year from their TV deal, which $200 million is a lot of money to you and me, but for the sake of a professional sporting league and TV money, as far as a brand like ESPN is concerned, we all know, if you keep track of these numbers, that's not a lot of money. So there should be room for growth. There should be room for an increase. But to say that this is going to change overnight or you're going to hit that 50% mark is a little naive and a little too optimistic, in my opinion. There should be a happy medium, though. With that being said, I don't want this to be where you can continue having this conversation. Like, I wonder, for the vast majority of the ladies in that room, do you understand the perspective of, we don't want to revisit this conversation where, oh, the league is losing money or we're losing money 2 years from now because you increase expenses just as much as you're increasing your historic growth, and then it's like on the balance sheet you're really not making any progress? Those are just my 2 cents. Next thing here, John Jones on the White House card. I have the article in front of me, so I kind of want to read part of it. John Jones is, quote, disappointed by Dana White's comments about the potential White House card. John Jones, who re-entered the promotion's anti-doping testing pool, said he was disappointed to hear the comments made by UFC CEO Dana White, who is hesitant to book him on the potential event at the White House. Quote, this was his tweet. I heard the comments made at last night's press conference. While I was a little disappointed, I'm still in the UFC's drug testing pool, staying sharp and continuing to train like a professional. I will be ready for whatever comes next. In a recent interview, I shared, and I'm opening up the full tweet now because it wasn't in the article, I shared that the opportunity to fight at the White House gave me something deeper to fight for, a quote-unquote why that goes beyond paychecks or belts. Fighting for my country gives me a greater purpose. The silver lining in all of this is knowing the fans see my heart. They see I am ready and I'm willing to take on anyone to represent my country on a historic stage. For me, it's never been about the opponent. I'm chasing a legacy, something timeless, something bigger than that moment. So for now, I'll keep grinding, stay patient, and stay faithful. I'm ready to fight on July 4th, #Independence Day. Look, John Jones cannot have it both ways. John Jones cannot benefit from the hype that he has seemingly created by being so unpredictable over the years in more facets than one, and be upset when Dana White is not willing to say concretely, look, I can put you on the White House card. This is where you reap what you sow. You made your bed, now you lie in it. John Jones, after months of speculation, ended up leaving and claiming he was retiring. Then 2 weeks later, re-entered the testing pool, essentially. I think it was either 1 week or a maximum of 2 weeks. You can't, I understand where Dana White is coming from here. I had the chance to meet him earlier this year. He is the same person behind the scenes that he is on camera. He is a very commonsensical guy, a guy's guy that is easy to get along with, and I think Dana's in the right here. And to be quite honest, you look at John Jones' booking history and his actions outside the octagon as well and outside of the promotion, and you realize he's not somebody who is reliable enough to put on this card. Not to mention, I'm not even sold, if I'm being honest, as a fan, that this card is even going to happen, this White House card, because logistically, Ariel Helwani was talking about this on his show, and they had a great discussion on it, on this subject with his team on the show last week, where they were like, Ariel brought up a good point, which is you really can't sell tickets to this event. It's such a security nightmare logistically. You're probably giving these tickets out. And then do you really want to put a star like a Conor McGregor or a John Jones on this card when you know you can't sell tickets? In my opinion, not to say he's not a superstar, because he is, but the happy medium of like an American guy who everybody loves, who's an up-and-comer, who's young, who's not past his prime, who maybe you don't mind not getting the ticket sales from because he's not a mega star, is someone like Bo Nickel. I think Bo Nickel is perfect for that card. I think if it ends up happening, his name is written all over it. But that's just my thoughts on that. And look, you reap what you sow. As big of a fan of John Jones as I am, I understand John Jones is the GOAT, but you have made your bed and you have to lie in it. You reap what you sow, and John Jones is known for being unpredictable in more ways than one, both inside the octagon and outside of it, so he can't be upset or disappointed when Dana White says, look, the White House card is something that logistically is already difficult enough. It's a security nightmare, but I also don't know, quite frankly, if I can trust John Jones in a spot like this. I'm with Dana White on that. Moving on to our third and last topic here, Joe Burrow. What an amazing showcase of him on quarterback season 2. I got to learn so much more about him, grew in my appreciation for him. Documentaries like that are also really important to me because as a fan more than anything else, it really humanizes these guys, and it shows me, look, it is not as easy to be an NFL quarterback or to be a professional athlete as you would think. And these guys are constantly on their phone. Joe Burrow said, like, I'm trying to stay away from it, but I seemingly can't. And he also revealed a lot of nuggets in there that I think are important, which was like, they showed Joe Burrow talking about the Lions, and Joe was very honest and like, man, I love the Lions. I love how strong their run game is. It clearly starts with the run game. The play action pass game opens up from there. They have excellent schemes. He was talking longingly about something that he clearly does not have, and you see that. The team is literally Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, one pass rusher, and Trey Hendrickson, and that's it. They really don't have anybody else. Jesse Bates, they lose guys in free agency. They're not willing to pay the guys they need to. They are a historically cheap franchise. Joe Burrow, since he got to the NFL, has been forced to do more with less and has consistently done more when he's been healthy, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. With that being said, to me, there is an obvious point of improvement here when I look at the Bengals. And it's not their quarterback, it's not their wide receiver. Yes, O-line is obviously very important. Could their run game get better? Absolutely. I think they haven't had a consistently great run game. Joe Mixon has had nice stretches or nice like opening weeks, has always been a joke. Like, he's a fantasy monster weeks 1 through 3 for the past few years, but like, they need something more consistent. They need to build their offensive line, and Joe Burrow's consistently had a bottom 5 O-line since he got into the league. It has not been as elite as they would have liked, even though they've tried to like pay guys here and there. Orlando Brown Jr., for example. It doesn't make the entire offensive line. I think they need a complete rehaul, and I know they are trying to address that, but we'll see how it plays out. To me, though, the obvious fix here is if this season doesn't go as well as we think it should as fans who know Joe Burrow, when he's healthy, is one of the best quarterbacks on the planet. To me, he's number 3 or 4. I'm still deciding, do I want him above Lamar Jackson, or do I believe Lamar Jackson is a better quarterback than him? Right now, I'm leaning towards I would rather have Lamar Jackson than Joe Burrow. That's just my stance on it. But a guy who's a top 4 minimum, maybe top 3 quarterback in the league, it's not all on him. It's not his fault. He can't do everything. does there need to be a change at head coach when it comes to Zach Taylor? Because Zach Taylor is not free of flaws here. When I look back on it, and I'm not here to call for anybody's job, Zach Taylor has a losing record as a head coach in the NFL, has been carried by Joe Burrow since Joe entered the league, was carried to a Super Bowl appearance, and to me, Zach Taylor doesn't fit into either of the two boxes that I like to put head coaches in, and I understand that there's many different personalities out there as a head coach, but to me, as a head coach in the NFL, to be an elite guy, or even in general, NFL head coaches usually fall into one of two categories: the motivator in the locker room and the scheme guy. Sean McVay is a scheme guy. He's a little bit of a motivator, but he's a scheme guy. Kyle Shanahan is absolutely a scheme guy. To me, a motivator in the locker room or a locker room guy is someone like Mike Tomlin or like Dan Campbell. Zach Taylor is definitely not a motivator based on his personality and the clips that we've seen from him. And I don't believe that he's a scheme guy, nor does anybody claim or really outside of the Bengals organization vet for him, oh yeah, Zach Taylor's a huge scheme guy. You should see him with the X's and O's. He's phenomenal. He schemes stuff up that we've never seen. You don't hear that about a guy like Zach Taylor. If this doesn't work out, or by midseason the Bengals are struggling again, it looks like they're going to be out of the playoff picture, or like they're fighting to even get in the hunt. I understand they have a difficult division, but it's like we expect more out of this Bengals team with a historically great quarterback under center. Joe Burrow, the reality is, for as much as people knock Joe Burrow last season broke the record with 8 games with 250 passing yards or more and 3 touchdowns or more. The record was previously held by Tom Brady, and it was 6 games. Joe Burrow accomplished all that just to fall short of the playoffs because his team is not as good as he is, and his head coach, quite frankly, I don't believe is an elevator of talent. I don't think he's a great scheme guy. I don't think he's a great motivator. If we do not see progress from this Bengals team as a whole, I'm not worried about Joe Burrow, and to me, he is not under the gun whatsoever beyond the injury concerns. Then I believe that Zach Taylor deserves a serious consideration as to whether or not he should be the head coach moving forward in Cincinnati. And that's my thoughts on that. With that being said, that's all for this week's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Football season is going to start ramping up. The NFL offseason, Jerry Jones is talking today at a press conference. We'll see how that goes. But for now, thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you next week.